At 3 a.m., my neighbor banged on my door and said, "Don't go to your husband's grave tomorrow." What I found out later shocked me. At exactly 3 in the morning, someone banged on my front door so hard the frame shook. I sat up in bed with my heart racing. Before I could put on my slippers, the knocking came again, faster and louder, like a drum in the dark. I turned on the porch light and opened the door a crack. My neighbor, Alice, stood on the step in her robe, hair messy, eyes wide and shiny with fear. "Grace, listen to me," she said, almost whispering and almost crying. "Do not go to your husband's grave tomorrow. Promise me. Please, do not go." The words felt like cold water on my skin. I stared at her. "Alice, why would you say such a thing?" I asked. "Tomorrow is his birthday. I take flowers every year." She grabbed my hands and squeezed hard. "Please, not tomorrow. Something bad will happen if you go." "What do you mean?" I asked. Her lips trembled. She looked over her shoulder, as if someone was watching from the shadows of the street. "I cannot explain now," she said. "Just trust me. Lock your doors and stay inside. Do not go to the grave." Before I could ask more, she backed away and hurried down the path, almost running, her slippers slapping the pavement. I stood there with the porch light humming, listening to the quiet after her footsteps vanished. The street was empty. The night air felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding a secret. That was the peak. That was the moment that cut the night open and poured fear into it. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned my head against the wood. My husband, Peter, had been gone for 3 years. I always brought white lilies to his grave on his birthday. Why would Alice tell me not to go? What could be waiting for me there? I did not sleep again. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table, listening to the old house breathe. The clock ticked. The kettle clicked. Every small sound felt too loud. I tried to think of a reason. Maybe there were wild dogs around the cemetery. Maybe there was a sinkhole by the hill. Maybe Alice had a bad dream and took it too seriously. But the memory of her hands shaking on mine would not leave me. At sunrise, I stepped outside to water the roses. The world looked soft and new, like a curtain had been lifted from it. Birds sang. A boy rode a bicycle past and waved. It felt normal, yet my stomach would not unclench. I wanted to call Alice, but I did not want to seem unkind or nosy. She had looked truly scared. I decided to wait. I would not go to the cemetery that morning. I would buy the flowers and go in the afternoon, when the sun was high and the groundskeeper was working by the gate. I dressed, tied my scarf, and walked to the market. The flower stall smelled sweet and bright. I chose the lilies Peter liked, white and clean, with little yellow dust on their hearts. The seller, a kind woman named Martha, wrapped them gently. "Big day, Grace?" she asked. "It is Peter's birthday," I said. 3 years now. Martha touched my arm. "He was a good man. Safe journey to his resting place." I nodded and went home. I placed the lilies in water by the window. The house felt quiet again. I tried to knit. I tried to read. I could not focus. At noon I made soup and ate only 2 spoonfuls. My hands kept shaking. I told myself to breathe. I told myself to pray. I told myself not to be ruled by fear. At 2 o'clock, I put the lilies back in their paper and grabbed my small bag. I checked the front door twice, then stepped outside. The sun was bright. The wind carried the smell of cut grass. I told myself Alice would understand. It was only a grave visit. Nothing more. As I locked the gate, a black car slowed at the corner. The window rolled down, and a man I did not know stared at me for a long second. No smile. No nod. Just a stare that felt too heavy for a stranger. Then the car moved on, slow and quiet, like it was trying to make no sound. I stood very still. The lilies rustled in my hands. A cloud moved across the sun, and the street dimmed. My phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Do not go to the cemetery. This is your last warning." The car turned around and began to crawl back toward my house. The black car stopped right in front of my gate. My fingers tightened around the lilies until the stems bent. The window rolled down again, and I saw the same man. He looked to be in his 50s, clean-shaven, wearing a dark suit even though it was hot. His eyes were cold and unreadable. "Mrs. Grace Turner?" he asked in a low voice. Yes, I said, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. He glanced at the flowers. You shouldn't go anywhere today. Stay inside. For your safety. I tried to find words. Who are you? What is this about? Did Alice send you? The man didn't answer. He looked at something on his phone, then put it down. Please, ma'am, just listen. Not today. Not tomorrow. Then he drove off, turning the corner and disappearing. I stood there frozen. The air felt thick, like the world had stopped breathing for a moment. 2 people had now told me not to go to my husband's grave. 2. And neither had explained why. I ran back inside and locked the door. My hands trembled so much I spilled half the water from the vase. I called Alice, but she didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. I even walked to her house, but the curtains were closed and no sound came from inside. The fear started growing roots in my chest. I sat by the window, watching the road, waiting for someone else to appear. Hours passed. Nothing. The lilies started to wilt a little at the edges. At nightfall, I turned on all the lights in the house. Every small sound made me jump. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? That my neighbor warned me not to visit a grave, and then a strange man repeated it. They'd think I was imagining things. I went to bed with the phone under my pillow. I couldn't sleep. The clock ticked. The wind moved the curtains. And then, around midnight, I heard something. It wasn't the door this time. It came from the back of the house. A soft scraping sound, like someone dragging a shoe across the gravel. I sat up. My breath caught. The scraping stopped. I waited. Then it came again, closer this time, just under my kitchen window. I grabbed a flashlight and crept to the kitchen. My knees felt weak. When I shone the light through the window, I saw movement. A shadow darted behind the fence. I gasped and dropped the flashlight. The light rolled across the floor. I rushed to lock the back door. My fingers shook so badly I nearly missed the latch. Then I heard whispering. Faint, but clear. A man's voice. Tomorrow morning, it said. By the grave. Make sure she comes. I froze. Someone was talking about me. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to breathe quietly. The whispers faded. I peeked through the curtain but saw nothing, just darkness and the faint outline of the trees. By dawn, I hadn't slept a minute. I called Alice again and left a message. Alice, please call me. I don't know what's happening. Someone was outside my house. I didn't go to the cemetery that morning. I sat by the window, waiting for Alice to show up or call back. Nothing. Around noon, I saw 2 police cars speeding past, sirens blaring, heading toward the cemetery road. My heart dropped. I hesitated, then grabbed my bag and the flowers. Against all warnings, I decided to go. I needed to know what was happening. I needed to see Peter's grave. When I reached the cemetery gate, the police cars were still there. Yellow tape stretched across part of the grounds. A few people stood behind the tape, whispering. I walked closer, clutching my lilies. An officer stopped me. Ma'am, this area is closed. Please stay back. What happened? I asked, my voice trembling. The officer sighed. We found a man's body near the graves. We're still identifying him. My blood turned cold. Where? I asked weakly. He pointed toward the hill where Peter's grave was. And that was when I saw it. Someone had placed a bouquet of white lilies, just like mine, on my husband's grave. But I hadn't been there yet. My knees almost gave out when I saw those lilies. The same flowers I had bought that morning now sat perfectly arranged on Peter's grave. I stood frozen behind the police tape, my breath catching in my throat. The stems were still fresh, wet with dew, as if someone had just placed them there. The officer noticed my trembling hands. Ma'am, are you all right? I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. That's my husband's grave, I whispered. Those flowers, someone put them there. He frowned. You knew the deceased man found here. I don't know. I haven't seen him, I said quickly. But I was warned not to come today. Twice. My neighbor and some strange man told me something bad would happen if I came. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. Who warned you? I gave Alice's name and described the man in the black car. He wrote everything down, then said gently, you should go home for now, ma'am. We'll contact you if we need to speak again. But I didn't want to leave. My eyes stayed locked on those lilies. Whoever had placed them there must have done it only minutes before the police arrived. I turned and walked back to my car, heart pounding. I didn't even notice tears sliding down my cheeks until I started the engine. When I got home, I sat in silence for almost an hour, just staring at the wall. I didn't know what scared me more, the fact that someone had been at Peter's grave, or that I was supposed to be there at the same time. If I had ignored Alice's warning, would I have met whoever killed that man? Then came a knock at my door. I jumped so hard my teacup spilled. My first thought was the man in the car is back. But when I opened the door, it was Alice. Her eyes were red from crying. "Alice," I gasped. "Where have you been? I called you." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her hands were shaking. "Grace, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you this. I thought I was losing my mind." I grabbed her shoulders. "Tell me what's going on." She took a deep breath. 3 nights ago, I had a dream about Peter's grave. I saw someone standing there, digging. Then a man grabbed you from behind. You screamed, and when I ran toward you, I saw blood. I woke up crying, and when I looked outside, that same black car was parked near the cemetery road. I thought it was just a dream until I saw it again last night. I stared at her, speechless. "Alice, that car was at my house today. The man told me not to go to the grave." Her face went pale. "Then he knows." "Knows what?" "That whoever he's working for wanted you there. You were supposed to be the one they found, not that poor man." The room spun. "Are you saying someone wanted to kill me?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But Grace, this isn't just about Peter's grave. There's something buried there that isn't supposed to be found." I felt my whole body freeze. "What do you mean, something buried?" She looked toward the window as if afraid someone was listening. "Your husband told my late husband something before he died. He said, if anything ever happens to me, it won't stay hidden forever." My husband never told me what that meant, but after his death, I started having those dreams. The floorboards creaked as we stood in silence. My head swam with questions. What had Peter been hiding? Why did someone care so much that I stay away from his grave? Before I could ask more, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Turner," a man's voice said. It was the same cold tone from before. "I told you not to go." My heart dropped. "Who are you?" I whispered. "Now you've seen what happens to those who don't listen." I could hear a faint sound in the background, something like shovels striking dirt. "What do you want from me?" The line went dead. I looked at Alice. Her hands were covering her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Then, from outside, we heard a car engine start. The same black car. The headlights swept across my window. Alice grabbed my arm. "Grace, he's back." The car's headlights stayed fixed on my window like 2 white eyes watching me breathe. I froze beside Alice, afraid even to whisper. The engine idled for a long moment, humming in the darkness, then suddenly revved and sped off down the road. I ran to the curtain and peered through it. The car disappeared around the bend, but not before I noticed something. It had no license plate. Alice was trembling. "We have to call the police again, Grace. This isn't safe." I nodded and grabbed the phone. Before I could dial, a message appeared on the screen from that same unknown number. "Too late." My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone. Alice gasped. "Grace, what does it mean?" I didn't answer. Instead, I went to my bedroom, opened the drawer, and pulled out Peter's old diary. He used to write everything down, especially during the last few months before he died. I flipped through the worn pages, scanning for anything unusual. And there it was, an entry from just a week before his death. "If they ever find out what's beneath the old oak at the cemetery, they'll come for me. I can't keep their secret any longer." My chest tightened. Beneath the old oak. That was near his grave. Alice read over my shoulder and covered her mouth. "Grace, do you think he buried something?" "I don't know," I said. "But whatever it is, it must be why that man doesn't want me there." I stood up and grabbed my coat. "I'm going to the cemetery." "Grace, no," Alice cried. "It's dark. What if he's still there? I can't live like this, Alice. I need answers. Peter deserves peace." Reluctantly, she agreed to come with me. We took her car and drove through the quiet streets. The moon hung low, pale and cold. When we reached the cemetery, it was completely still, no officers, no tape, just silence. We parked by the gate and crept in with flashlights. The beam cut through the fog, revealing rows of headstones. My heart pounded harder with every step. When we reached Peter's grave, the lilies were gone. Only the wet mark of their stems remained. Then we saw it, the old oak tree. Something glinted beneath it, half buried. I knelt down and brushed away the dirt. It was a small metal box, rusted and cold. My fingers trembled as I pulled it free. Alice whispered, "Open it." I did. Inside were old documents, sealed envelopes, and a flash drive. One of the envelopes had Peter's handwriting, "For Grace. Only if I'm gone." I unfolded the letter. "My love, if you're reading this, it means they got to me. The company I worked for was hiding illegal chemical waste beneath the new cemetery grounds. They buried the truth, literally. I kept evidence on this flash drive. I fear for our lives, Grace. Trust no one, not even the ones who come to warn you. They'll do anything to erase the truth." My throat closed up. "Peter," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. Before Alice could respond, we heard footsteps behind us. Heavy, slow, deliberate. A beam of light flashed over our shoulders. "Put the box down, Mrs. Turner," a familiar voice said. It was the man from the black car. Alice screamed, but he raised a hand. "Quiet. You were never supposed to find that." He stepped closer, a gun glinting in his hand. "Give me the drive." I clutched the box to my chest. "No." He aimed the gun. "Don't make me ask twice." Then a loud siren split the air. Blue and red lights flickered across the graves. The police had returned. The man turned, cursing, and bolted into the trees. Officers ran after him. I sank to the ground, sobbing, the box still clutched tightly in my arms. Alice wrapped her arms around me. "It's over," she whispered. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because secrets that dangerous never truly die, they just wait to be found again. The next morning, sunlight poured through my curtains like it was washing away the nightmare. My body ached from exhaustion, but I couldn't rest. The flash drive Peter had hidden was now in a sealed evidence bag at the police station. They said it contained company records, maps, and video clips showing barrels of toxic chemicals buried under the cemetery. The detectives promised an investigation. They also told me the man in the black car had worked as a private enforcer for one of the executives Peter had tried to expose. He was captured trying to flee the town before sunrise. I sat by the window, watching the world move on like nothing had happened. Children walked to school, dogs barked, and the air smelled of rain. But inside me, something had changed. The fear was gone. In its place was peace and sorrow. Alice came over with tea. She smiled weakly. "The police said your husband saved lives, Grace. That evidence will stop them from poisoning more land." I nodded. "He died protecting the truth." I almost ignored his warning, "And yours too." She reached across the table and held my hand. "Sometimes, we don't need to understand everything right away. We just need to trust the voice that tells us to stay safe." I looked at her, then out the window toward the distant cemetery. "I think Peter found a way to keep talking to me," I said softly. "Through you, through that diary, through everything that happened." Later that afternoon, I visited the cemetery, this time with police permission. The old oak stood tall and silent. Peter's grave looked peaceful again. I placed a new bouquet of lilies and whispered, "You did the right thing, my love. And I finally understand." As I turned to leave, a gentle breeze brushed my cheek, like a hand saying goodbye. I smiled through my tears. The life lesson I carried home that day was simple but powerful. Sometimes the warnings we don't understand are the ones that save our lives. That night, I slept without fear for the first time in weeks. The world outside was quiet, and in my dreams, Peter smiled at me from under that old oak tree, the truth finally set free. If this story gave you chills or made you think twice about strange warnings, don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment about what you'd have done, and like the video to support more grandma stories like this.